Hello and welcome to Coach, a show about perspective. I'm Coach Samuel Barclay, founder of the VA Titans. Today we have Allison, Coach C, and Dr. Todd Sterling joining us to offer insight and perspective.
Dr. Todd Sterling. Dr. Sterling's area of specialty is urology, and he provides care for a wide variety of urologic patients and conditions. As a commander in the United States Navy, Dr. Sterling also has had diverse experiences in military training and leadership. And a former school athlete, Dr. Sterling has coached with a number of basketball organizations, including the VA Titans. He is a father of 4, and we are happy to welcome him here to coach today to share some perspective with us. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Definitely appreciate you giving us some of your time this evening.
Oh, no doubt. No problem. My pleasure.
Try to make it not too difficult.
Okay.
All right. So I think that we get to the opportunity to have some really unique perspective today. We've got Coach C and Coach Sam, who, as always, provide great insight from the coach's point of view, father, athlete, all different types of hats. And we also have Dr. Sterling with us. And Todd, you have great experience as a father, as a coach, as an athlete, and such perspective because of your medical career. So I wanted to start by talking about physical fitness. Physical fitness in a sport can be defined as the ability to meet the physical demands of that sport and to be able to perform optimally. But we know fitness is not a permanent state of being, and atrophy and deconditioning can happen. So many coaches plan training cycles throughout the year. Other coaches focus on year-round conditioning. What do we think is the best schedule for training?
Oh, wow. I'm not sure. I'll speak more so from my military experience as a medical officer. Actually, when I was with NSW, there was a kind of a training cycle that we would use to optimize physical fitness. Obviously for deployments and things of that nature. And what we had to emphasize more often than not was the rest phase, because it's during the rest phase that your body actually grows and matures and strengthens. We focus so much on the strengthening and the breaking down of tissue and working out and things of that nature, that you can lend yourself to overuse injuries, and without that rest, without that diversity of training. Oftentimes, it's what you miss your goal, and actually what you're doing becomes ineffective. I know a lot of training cycles, whether it's 6 to 8 weeks or 2 to 3 months, where you have a week of active rest. And active rest a lot of times can just be doing something different than what you normally do, what your normal routine is, whether it's playing a game, going for a walk, doing some leisure, just kind of fun activities. Especially if you're the kind of person that still needs to kind of maintain a schedule, schedule in those types of activities, whether it's going for a bike ride or something like that. A lot of times, especially with our youth, where they're starting a lot younger, and they're dedicating to one sport, a lot harder. A lot of my colleagues in medicine, talk about how the injuries that we used to see, in the late teens and early 20s, we're now seeing in the early teens, and even in the late adolescent phase. where kids used to play, sports year round. They were doing different sports throughout the year. And they weren't training as hard for each sport. They were just kind of rolling from one sport to the next, and their bodies were allowed our bodies were allowed to kind of mature and develop just as a bystander, or as a byproduct of just having fun and being a kid. So I think as we look to balance, success, hard work, dedication, with balance that with, taking it easy, and just what we can bear, what we can withstand, and what's normal and what's natural. It's easy, and this is kind of my soapbox. But I say it's we're fanatical beings by nature. It's easy to be all hot, all cold, all red, all blue, work out all the time, throw yourself into dieting, or just pig out, sit on the couch, and eat ice cream. It takes so much more strength and fortitude to be balanced, to say I'm just going to eat 2 pieces of cake instead of the whole cake, or I'm just going to have 1 bite of ice cream instead of eating a whole cone. I'm just going to work out 3 days a week as opposed to 7. I'm going to get out there, have a good time, play my best, but not get upset and get emotionally connected to the wins and losses. Being able to enjoy life as it's happening, while still working hard at life, takes a lot of balance. And that's what I would want to say most to young people coming up, is work hard, be dedicated, but at the same time also know how to have fun and enjoy, and relax, relate, release at the same time. And it's to do both. It's like you almost feel like you have to be schizophrenic or bipolar or something like that. And that's why it's easy to be one or the other. And that's why the hardest thing to do is to be balanced.
I definitely agree. I think I agree by kind of seeing it firsthand. Even myself growing up, we would play baseball and then rotate into football and basketball, kind of like rotating. And by just doing that, we did escape a lot of those injuries, like you said, because we weren't training so hard on something specific to get ready for that specific thing. We kind of would switch gears and then do something that would just take a whole different set skill. And we did alleviate a lot of those issues. I think the business side, and sometimes I've been referring to it really is that I think when you go to school teams, that's business. And I think that's kind of how parents have been looking at it sometimes with their kids. There's the business, and then there's the rec side. And sometimes I've been preaching to even my youngest that it's like, if you want this on the business side, which is school, we might have to approach it that way. But as far as if you just want to have fun and you just want to do it, then we can look at the rec side. You can do this for the rest of your life, as long as there's a team, you play on a 95 and up team if there's there. So, I definitely agree with the idea of the rest, and how that does escape us. And I think a big piece of that is the business side. And maybe parents just feel like it's easy just to occupy them doing the same routine instead of switching gears. That's also something too.
Absolutely.
Piggybacking off that, Todd, thank you for your service. One service member to the next. Thank you for your service, brother. I want to piggyback off Sam with the rest. I think that rest is really what gets away from people. Like some of us that trained back in the days, it was just go, go, go. I think more and more that rest, that active rest factors, more people are starting to include that. As you can see with our pro athletes, they're big on rest, and for those dual sport athletes, they gotta get that rest, to prepare their bodies for the next phase. So that active rest is definitely one of the more important things nowadays. Because that equals your longevity. The more you give your body that time to recover, the better off you'll be. And I think more people are understanding that nowadays.
So all of that leads really well into another question that I had for you guys. Overtraining is exactly what you're talking about. When we don't have adequate recovery and rest time, overtraining can happen, and it's usually the result of excessive consistent training. So to just keep this conversation going a little bit longer from both the medical perspective and the coaching perspective, what are some of the negative impacts that we could see? Like, how is that going to actually look in a player if they haven't had the rest time and they have been overtrained?
I think first and foremost, I think prevention is key. Even when you're in a workout program, I think to do it's easy to get into a routine, and routine is actually kind of what you want in order to kind of be successful and be consistent. Consistency is something that we preach and that we look at. But in the consistency, we need, kind of going back to, one of my favorite words, balance. We need to go back to balance of the routine and adding variation. And oftentimes, if you're doing the same routine from a workout strengthening standpoint more than 2 weeks, you start to significantly lose the impact of each workout. You want to keep your body guessing. So it's almost like as soon as you set a routine, as soon as you do a workout, you do that 1 or 2 weeks. Like the first workout, you might be learning it, kind of figuring out. The second week, you might kind of say, okay, I got this. The third week, you should actually be learning something new. You should be doing something new, adding whether it's the amount of reps or the amount of weight, changing it, doing or the actual exercise. From a strength standpoint, from an endurance standpoint, you want to do a different type of thing. That's prevention is really the best way to keep from getting injury. As far as it pertains to stresses, typically speaking, there's a difference between pain and soreness. And soreness is typically more more muscle and happens more after the fact. Pain is more joint, and bone, and happens during. And typically speaking, an individual needs to be in tune with their body. And a lot of times, what I tell patients or individuals or athletes is, if it hurts, don't do it. If it's sore, okay. And soreness typically happens afterwards. If it's sore, like you don't want to start. If it's sore, you want to work through it. If it hurts, don't do it. If it's sore, move and work through it. And that's a big difference, because pain is your body trying to tell you something. Okay. And when, we think, no pain, no gain, that's true from the standpoint of soreness. And kind of knowing your body and just being in tune with your body. So that's pretty much the longish, wordy kind of, answer, to your question.
I think to kind of just throw something out there that I'm kind of like seeing more, not that it's already known, communication. Sometimes these athletes don't want to communicate these issues. Sometimes real minor issues. They don't even know how to treat certain issues. And I think not knowing how to treat it is a big issue also when you have these situations over their seasons or over the time frame when they're playing. I think that's something that's a big negative. I think that as coaches, we have to kind of sometimes take a minute and talk to our athletes and say, from our experience, something they may be going through and ask them sometimes, because sometimes these kids don't know to even bring it up. So I think that's definitely a piece that's a negative.
From a coach's standpoint, you can kind of tell when you've overtrained your players or your players have overtrained. One, they tap out. Like some of your best athletes, you can start to see their performance decline when they're overtraining. Like you can see they're just tired. They can't do. And once the physical goes, the mental, if they're not mentally tough, that goes as well. So you start to see all those things start to break down when there's overtraining. As he said, that prevention part of it is just us as coaches. We got to be more aware. And even though we would love to run our players through hell to get stuff down, that's not always the best thing to do. Sometimes even just like we talk about the active rest, sometimes even just watching film is still a good way to keep players in tune. It doesn't always have to be physical all the time. That's that old school mentality, because as you guys know, us growing up, our coaches drove us in the dirt.
Right.
And that led to, as you know, as the doc said, more injuries, more mental lapse, and actually you're putting your players in more harm's way when you're doing that. So that's why it's always good to us as coaches to speak up and pay attention to that.
Well, let me ask.
I think as a coach, another indicator is when it's not fun anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to figure out ways to keep the fun and the joy in the hard work, and sometimes the act of rest, is a way to kind of do a fun check, with your team, with your players. A lot of times just kind of communicating with them and ask them, hey, what do you guys want to do? What do you like to do? I had my time, the first hour, or the first, couple of weeks have been my time. You all have been giving me my time. Now I want to give you some of your time, and checking in with them, communicating. And a lot of times just a fun check is something I think that a lot of coaches miss out on. Because when, as a coach, when, we love our team, we love our players, and we, there's nothing more we want as a coach than to see the progress, through the year, from the beginning to the end. And when you have that as a coach, as a player that those coaches that are being hard on you actually do love you and care about you. So there's an element of accepting, from a player standpoint, you accept the pain, that's being brought, because that pain is there to make you better. But as a coach, from a communication standpoint, sometimes we need to check ourselves and check in, with our players to make sure that they still have that feeling, that they still have that drive, that they still have that element of fun. Because to get the most out of your players is to kind of check to make sure that they're having fun. But at the same time, in having fun, we still, as a coach is from a balance standpoint, to make sure that we're holding them accountable. And that's where, being hard on them is like, hey, we can have fun, but you also, got to do what you're supposed to do. And that's where the balance, again, that favorite word of balance comes into play.
Agreed.
I think you actually answered my question.
Yes. I don't know that too. He answered mine. I was about to say something too, but he answered it. So.
And to be a little clear on it, it would be kind of the mindset of why you would want to make someone do something that maybe is kind of semi looking like you're driving them in the dirt. But what you kind of spoke out was you want to get them to know that you're doing it out of love. I kind of go back to that. But that's kind of what I was wondering. I was just, for those that was like thinking, why would you still do that? And the answer is you're doing it from the right spot. And that's what you want to have. The trust.
So a good analogy, that I always say, and a lot of this has to do with medical education, but I also use it with sports as well. In medicine, where our training is difficult. Residency, medical school, a lot of the hours, working 80 to 120 hours a week, working 3 or 4 days in a row. A lot of the outside world looks at medical education as always too tough. You'll end up making mistakes, blah, blah, blah. And my answer to that is yeah, you're right. We don't want it to be too tough. We don't want it to be too stressful. When you go to the gym, only lift 10 pounds. Don't lift 20. We don't want to be too stressful. We don't want to stress your muscles. And at the end of the day, that's a facetious answer to say, being a doctor, or medicine, it's not easy. You're taking people's lives, into your hands. You're responsible for people's health and well-being. If the training was easy, then I don't want you to be taking care of me. You understand what I'm saying? There's an element of stress that is inherent to training. As to make a good team, I don't want practice to be, too hard. Let's just make it 30 minutes instead of an hour. When we're in the gym, being, that element of balance, and we look at overtraining needs to be something that we're aware of, so we address it. But at the same time, you also want to be aware of, you need to train. We need to stress you. We need to push you to the edge of injury without injuring you. And that's the element of balance where yes, you're going to have a few, and you want to make sure that it's a few injuries because we're human, right? And there's going to be mistakes. But you don't want to train to get injuries. You just want to train to stress. And if you get an injury, you reevaluate what you're doing, kind of back off, make some adjustments, and then treatment is a totally different topic. But hopefully we don't get there. You want to err on the side of safety, right, and not overtraining. And that's why we want to make sure that we're always double checking to make sure that it's fun, that people enjoying themselves, that we're communicating, as which is a big word that you said earlier. But at the same time, we still want to say, hey, I love you, and because I love you, I'm going to be hard on you. I expect more of you, and it's the expectations. It's the expectation aspect that lets people know that we love them. Because if I didn't expect you to be able to withstand this stress and this weight, that means I had low expectations of you, which means that I don't really love you. So in our communication with them, it's like, look, I'm not going to give you anything to do that I don't think you can do, because that's not why we're here. I'm only giving you something to do because I expect you to be able to meet that challenge, because I have such high view and such high, I hold you in such high esteem, high regard, and I'm so impressed by you that, and this is something I also look at as it pertains to when we use the word potential. And I think that potential is a bad word, because you have such high potential. You have no, I don't look at your potential. I look at you as an expectation. I expect excellence from you. I don't think that that's a potential. That's an expectation. And I think when kids hear potential, they say, yeah, but that's not me. Anybody can be president, but we all know that everybody's not going to be president. We know everybody's not going to be president of the United States. We know everybody's not going to be the next LeBron James. We know that everybody's not going to be a Michael Jordan. We know that. And that's something that, everyone has the potential to be everyone. You're a human being. You have that potential, right? But when I assign you an expectation, that's a lot different than saying someone has potential. And as a community, we expect certain things, out of our government, out of our leaders, out of people that hold a certain office. And what we need to do is assign that same expectation to people that don't hold an office, but we expect to get to that position. And when kids view expectations, they view expectations differently, or than they view potentials, and that's where I think that we can be hard on somebody, and when somebody is hard on me, I take how they're being on me differently, if they're just being a jerk, or is it because I let them down, from a standpoint of expectation, and then when they're being hard on me, and it's because I let them down, being on the other side of that conversation, you also need to build them up as we break them down. And that, all of those things are kind of wrapped up in the balance of being a coach, being a leader, and being a role model.
Definitely.
I'm sorry. I know I could be kind of talking to you.
And our viewers, and that's the whole point with the perspective, because you got a lot of people, humans, like you said, they're not going to ask the question. They may want to know it. They may never get it, and that might be the opportunity for them to get the perspective that might kin with them, and they can just be like, you know what, I didn't hear it. I didn't think about it from that light. That's cool. Now let me look more into it, and that's what we want to promote. So that's definitely what we want.
Yeah, and Todd, you said something really important, and it goes back to your favorite word, balance. We have to be careful not to overtrain, but it's still really important that we have training and we have consistency. So what are, with regards to performance and overall health, what are the benefits of training?
There's confidence is a big one. I think everyone will agree with that. When you know what you can do, when you know what you're worth, and when you know your value, and you have that confidence, it affects your performance, and you perform better in all aspects of life. As as a black man, as a black physician, something that I talk to other people of color is that ultimately, but this goes, for everyone, is working and moving, existing and doing with a humble confidence. And that's a balance, okay? Because oftentimes, as a black man who's confident, there's going to be people that say, oh, he's cocky, and he needs to be put in his place. But he really just knows what he's doing and he's confident. You understand what I'm saying? And if he's too humble, people are going to say, oh, he's unsure of himself. He lacks the knowledge. He lacks the skill. He lacks the ability. But no, he's just humble, and he's just doing his thing. I just think in general, everyone, you should try to walk that line of having a humble confidence, like being cocky. I mean, not being cocky, knowing what you can do, but using it, I'm saying, for the good and to uplift others, uplift the team. And in that confidence, being humble to say, this was a group or a team effort, or I'm going to elevate as many people as I can, along with whatever I'm able to do. I'm going to bring as many people along with me, because not one person on this planet gets to where they are by themselves, and we all get help along the way, and it may come in different forms, and in your confidence, I think the humbleness comes in being able to look back or to look around you and to let people smooch off of your successes. But in that smooching, you want to be able to elevate them, to that, you're teaching a man to fish also. So there's balance to everything that we do. And it's more so just comes from an awareness of understanding where you are, where you've been, and where you're going.
I agree. I think the benefits of training is 100% that. I think the benefits of training, which would include hopefully teammates, is a bonding. It's something that you could, if you're lucky enough or fortunate enough, you can have, your life. I think some of us have people that we grew up with from the sandbox. Some of us don't, but some of us have that person from our youth that we grew with through training, and they could have been our enemy, and through training, because now we both in the same camp, and now we working together, and we happen to live around each other. Shoot, 15, 20 years later, I'm your godfather for one of your kids, So it's like, I think that's one of the huge benefits of training right there, just the kinshipness. I know a lot of our athletes, they miss just the traveling to get to the training together, just the aspect of that, I think it's huge, and if you don't have that, then, I don't know what you're doing it for, but I definitely think that's the benefit, a benefit.
Absolutely. And just to kind of piggyback off of what you're saying as far as the camaraderie and training and understanding what you've been through, going through something together. And Coach C, as you said, just being in the military, having that camaraderie. There's something, me having been with the Special Forces, with the SEALs, NSW, as far as going through, buds, and training, whether when you make it through, even if you haven't, if you didn't go through together at the same time, knowing, that you've been through what I've been through. Knowing that we've trained, kind of equally. I know that when it comes to, the mission, or the game or whatever it might be, I know that you can handle your business. I don't have to pull your weight, and that, and I know that you can rely on me. And from a standpoint of working out together, and that confidence and training and knowing what you're worth, you can then go out and you can say, I know that I'm gonna handle my business. I know that my teammate, those that train with me are gonna handle their business. And from that, we can all do our jobs respectively and handle our business. And whether it's, hey, he's the rebounder, he's the shooter, he's the defender, through that training, you get to know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and you get your roles, and it's through working together as a team, where you're able to completely succeed, because everyone understands they have a job and they're going to do their job, not somebody else's job, and kind of getting along. It just helps with relationship and roles and just overall success of the team and from training. So yes, absolutely.
You're teaching today, Doc.
So earlier, Coach Sam and Coach C both touched on the role of the coach in the physical fitness and being maybe starting the communication going about it. So let's talk about one of the ways that the coach's role is affected. So coach has to design the workout, has to design the training. I want you guys to compare an off-season training and a peak season training for me. How do those look different? What exercises do you choose? What order? What frequency?
Off-season training going to be a little bit more intense than in-season or peak training for me, because I know from experience and from a coaching standpoint, being a student athlete, the off season is when you got to train your hardest, because you have to come back and improve. You got to work on those things which you were weak in a season before. You got to be better at it. So your off season workouts are going to be a little bit more intense, because it's things that you got to pick up on, whether it's conditioning, whether it's strength. During the season, as a coach, you don't want to run your players in the ground with intense training, because it's a long season, and as the season goes on, the goal is for your team to become stronger, not weaker. And if you overtrain your team, they're going to decline during the season. So you kind of gotta temper your balance with the off season and the in season, the peak training, because you want to make sure your athletes are well conditioned for the long haul. Because we see it all the time, those teams that push their teams too hard, they're pushed to the edge when it comes to that one game where they need to be there. The other team who pretty much had a consistent training throughout the season, you could tell. And those teams that kind of overdid it, guys that in the fourth quarter, which is an important quarter, especially in basketball, you see guys are gassed, the mental breakdowns. That's why it's important to keep that steady routine throughout the season versus, off season.
I definitely agree. You pretty much said, I think that's the right order of operation.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think us too, Titans, our program, we do that well. I think that we keep it very consistent. I know Sam does a real good job of making sure our training is it's effective. It's super effective because it's not too intense, and the kids can get through it. They got some got to push a little bit harder than others, but it's not so intense to the point where it's tapping people out. People don't come to practice like, oh man, Coach Sam, Coach C, they're about to kill us today. They know that it's going to be some work involved. It's going to be some work involved, but it's not going to be over the top. It's not going to be, having people jumping off the cliff. No, it's going to be right there at the edge, right where it needs to be. So, yeah.
I think you're definitely right on that, because, we have players that are participating Titans that take some seasons off. And, when they see us out there working, sometimes they ain't really ready to work. They're not going to come over there, So
right.
Definitely, we definitely, I think, do a good job on that, spreading that out.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about the body and the physical training, but part of that is diet. And we all hear that the athlete's diet should look different than a typical diet. And some people say that it should be over half carbohydrates, both medically and from experience. What do you all think about that? How should athletes really be eating to reach their peak performance and stay the healthiest? And how does that change with age too?
I won't begin to lie and say that I have a lot of experience with diet. I do, or I'll say professional knowledge. Any more, I guess, than your general or average athlete. I will say that as it pertains to supplements, I don't, and this is more of a professional opinion, but I do not trust supplements pretty much at all. The GNC and all natural products are more of a money grab than they are a true I would say benefit.
Mm.
Typically speaking, most things that you would consider, medicinal or herbal medicines, at one time or another tried to make their way into the FDA approval for them. And when they fail, they end up in the all natural category where it's not regulated at all. Especially when patients come and they say, oh, I take, saw palmetto, or I take these herbs, or herbal medicines, or supplements. I just say, look, I'm not gonna tell anybody, what's good for them, what's not, what to do or what not to do. I'm not gonna, try to take the wind out of anybody's sail. I just caution people to understand that what a bottle says does not have to be what it actually is. Just by virtue of regulation. When for herbal medicines or all natural type of things, there's a lot of false advertisement out there. As a urologist, I deal a lot with low T, low testosterone, and Frank the Big Hurt commercials and all that other stuff, and that there's very little science behind those commercials. What I will say is typically speaking, a lot of people look for quick fixes, with a pill or some herbal supplement or remedy, when ultimately, there isn't, there's nothing, like diet and exercise, there's nothing like, ice and, rest and recovery, as it pertains, to various things. I think that, when we're working out, we need to, increase our protein. I do personally, if I'm, trying to hit a certain goal, a workout goal or something like that, I will do, supplemental protein, like whey protein or something like that, which is more so just because I don't eat enough, in my regular diet, to get, certain replenishment or building blocks. But I pretty much stay away from a lot of the other kind of like kind of pills and things of that nature. And I know, a lot of athletes, do a lot of supplements, amino acids. From a dietary standpoint, I think there are ways to get it, through diet with our food. Sometimes, we do need additional supplements for it. But when you start to get beyond like protein, carbohydrates, as you mentioned, the basic, food blocks, I think we start to get into the weeds of some of the other things that are out there where people market it as a quick fix or a ready-made, body in a box, or whatever. So I just want to say, just caution. I can't say that I know what's good and what's not. That I just say proceed with caution.
It's tough. It's tough. I know. I remember when I was younger, I used to wrestle. I remember my coach coming up to me and was just telling me and my mom and my dad, just eat them, you make me eat all these bananas. He just needs to load up on bananas. Make sure you got all these bananas. This is because I remember back then, a lot of these kids were playing around with creatine, and they were just playing around with different things. And it was like, in his mind, he was like, nah, it's a natural, whatever, natural. He's going to need this for energy. This is the best thing for him. And it always stuck with me because I knew a few athletes that did do certain things, or they decided, and not that it didn't hurt them. I look at them the day, I'm like, man, didn't really, last. But, I think natural, sticking to the basics. Like you said, there are probably a few things that you need to add more of, like maybe fiber. Some people need more fiber, So, I mean, there's definitely things you're going to need. But I think for the most part, you shouldn't need too much.
Yeah, eating. Yeah, I would say eating healthy. Like fast food. We know what's good for us and what's not. We know, and we know when we're eating. I mean, I'm not saying don't have any candy bar. I'm not saying don't. This food is one of the simple pleasures of life, right? But it's balance. It's not binging on anything. Have you can have a little bit of this, have a little bit of that. Some things we need a lot of, but just understanding what those food groups are, and kind of sticking to, like the basics, fundamentals. I'm sorry, Coach C.
Oh no, you're all good. This is a good question. I follow LeBron on like Instagram, and this dude, he eats. And you mentioned supplements, no supplements, all natural foods. Like, I mean, he's doing like, whole wheat, egg whites, and the man is. I know y'all been watching the bubble saying. I know you been keeping up. Lakers is your team. Y'all looking good, by the way. He's an old man out there, but he's got like a 25-year-old body, and it's like he takes good care of his body. He doesn't put things in his body that's not natural, and it keeps him going, man. And it's like I admire the way that he eats clean. I mean, and the thing is, like the doc said, he eats more healthy stuff. Like it's like fuel for him now. Like his body it's just pure fuel. So everything he puts in his body is like going to the gas station with a nice car and putting premium in it for him. And I think that's why he's lasted so long. I mean, at the rate he's going.
I think Vince Carter, also was. I think he was a vegetarian. I'm not sure. That's.
Yeah, I mean, these guys put the right stuff in their body, and you just taught me something today, because everybody thinks that supplements are the way. Because everybody, when it comes to, especially a lot of these superior athletes, they're looking for a quick way to get their body where they need to go. And then later on down the line, their body breaks down because, like as he said, it's not natural. It's not natural. So they're getting all these different drugs and supplements to make themselves go. But I think LeBron is proving that the natural way is the only way. It's the best way. It's the best.
I mean, supplements they're a shortcut, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the shortcut gets you there, but sometimes it comes back to bite you, in the end. So that's why I always just say proceed with caution. I don't know enough to say beyond that.
So we've got some writing questions for you guys, and I tried to keep it with our theme and our perspectives of who we have with us today. So the first question actually comes from a coach, from Coach L. Dear Titans, I have a new player who's extremely out of shape. Doing what the rest of the team is doing is not helping. What can I do to help this player get in shape?
Get him out there. I mean, the best thing you can do when a player is out of shape, they have to start somewhere. Just like any of us, like some of us gain weight and we want to lose it. Well, the best way to lose weight is to get on that journey, get on that bicycle, start pedaling. So the best advice I can give that coach, just get him out there and just take him through baby steps. I think some people, I know a lot of personal trainers that I see in some of the gyms that I've been in, right away, like they're pushing the gas on people who are out of shape, and they don't last long at all. Like they don't see them again. It's all about taking baby steps to get to that place you want to be. And if they want that player to have success, one thing they have to do, it starts with that leadership, showing them like, hey, it's a journey. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. And when it comes to losing weight, all of us know, a lot of us want to lose. It's definitely a marathon. You have to take it one step at a time, because if you go too fast, you're going to crash. So the best thing you can do with that athlete is just take them in baby steps, and also show them that progress and keep that motivation going with them.
I agree 100%. Motivation, baby steps, and just keep moving. And I'll as far as what Coach C said, and I'll just kind of reiterate that by saying, one, from a motivational standpoint, you have to continue to make it fun for the individual. And as we said earlier, you have to let the individual know that you care about them, and then you also have to set expectations. Let the individual that you expect that they will succeed, and that you're gonna help them. And then slow and steady wins the race. When we look for those shortcuts, that's when the injuries happen. So in everything that we're trying to do with this individual, we have to just make sure that we approach it from a balanced standpoint. because if you stay balanced in how hard you are on him, if you stay balanced in how hard you make him work, and if you stay balanced in your expectations of him, like just staying balanced in every way that you approach this individual, you have to think from a balanced standpoint. How can I give him enough without giving him too much? Because if you give him too much of anything, yes, he could fall off the wagon. He can not come back. He can lose his motivation, or he can not succeed. So you have to be balanced in every single. And those are the tough ones, and those are the ones where balance is more important. When your other team they're in shape, you can kind of overtrain them a little bit, or you can undertrain them a little bit, and they're going to be okay. The person who's out of shape, if you overtrain him, he's going to really hurt himself, or he's going to really lose his motivation. If you undertrain him, he's just not going to make it, and he's not going to get there. And then there's going to be disappointment in that from both you and him. So the further away you are from the goal, the more important it is to be balanced in every approach.
Absolutely.
I think I just keep them encouraged. I would definitely tell that coach that, encouragement is huge, especially at the non-business level. I mean, if he plays for somebody's school, that's different. It's the business, right? But rec level, if he's just out here in the community, I would definitely encourage. Try your best as a coach to figure out what he can do to prosper. Sometimes, just like any other student, you got to teach them in a different way. Some kids just don't receive certain things. Sometimes you might have to train that young athlete with another athlete just to maybe it just can work. There's a lot of different things I would suggest to that coach, because I know in my experience, I've had athletes that, and not to say out of shape, I've had athletes that maybe desired a different type of position, and they had to work at it and do certain things. Maybe they become quicker, or to do something, maybe to jump higher. And you might have to put that particular player with another player to just a workout buddy. I know working out, and I know that's something I'm not the biggest individual workouter that says, man, I need a workout partner. But I do know that there are people out there that they prosper when they have somebody with them that can do it with them. Sometimes when you have the team environment and they're all working out, I know that I remember in high school, one of the conditioning for wrestling one time, my coach, he had pneumonia. And it's just conditioning. And we out there, we running the area in our community, we running our tails off. This man halfway beat the whole team back to the small gym. We get to the small gym, the orders are immediately start crab walking, until the rest of the team get done with their run. You got a lot of players that quit. You got a lot of players that were like, man, I can't hang with this. And the intent was to drive out any players that he didn't want to stay on the team. But at the same time, let's say that environment isn't at school and it's just a rec situation of some sort. Well, that coach has to recognize that what you're using for that facet may not work for this facet, and that you might have to actually adjust it and do different necessary acts. So I'll just add that a little bit.
Yeah. And I think that has a lot to do with also just understanding the individual, and situational awareness. Age is going to be, have a different response, depending on how old, the player is, as well as personality. Being a father, having 4 different kids, they are all disciplined 4 different ways, from a standpoint of effective discipline and getting, and correcting, the behavior. What might reach one child or one player or one athlete or one patient, as a doctor, it's going to be different from individual to individual. And we're often thrown into situations where we have to very quickly, learn, get to know and assess, the individual so that we can adjust, how we begin to get them started on their journey and moving along.
Yeah. Also, that coach got to understand too, if that athlete doesn't see light at the end of the tunnel, they're going to give up and they're never going to get back in shape. And I think that's big for a lot of coaches, especially for those hardcore Bobby Knight type coaches. those players they end up quitting, man. Because it's like if you don't have a program where people can kind of feel like they're involved and they can get back, they'll never come back. And once again, I gotta give us credit. I hate to toot our own horn. I think that the things that we do for players who are out of shape, it's easy for them to get back in shape and kind of keep up a little bit. They feel like, oh, I can do it. I just need more time. If a player's not feeling like that, or they come into it and like, man, I got a long way to go. This seems impossible. They're gonna tap out. So for that coach, just keep, as Doc said, and Sam, keep baby steps, process, encouragement, motivation, and that player will be fine, just fine.
The next question is a simple question about hydration from Mel. Dear Titans, should I be drinking a Gatorade or a water during a game? That's from a player.
The time to hydrate and to be in medicine, the word is called kind of like homeostasis. The time to hydrate is actually before a game. You don't, if you start dehydrated, then you're already behind 8 ball. It doesn't matter what you drink, you're done. You're going to be tired and your performance is going to be lacking. Your mentality, your mentation, your thought process, your processing is going to be slow and delayed. We're supposed to drink 2.5 to 3 liters of water per day for an adult. For kids, adolescents, I would say 2 to 2.5 liters per day. And you're supposed to do it on a continual basis, not in a binge drinking type of fashion. So a lot of people walk around with, a 1 liter, water bottle or 2 liter water bottle all day. They wake up, they fill up their water bottle, then they walk out the door. It gets to lunchtime and they go, I haven't drunk any, and then they slam like half the bottle. That's binge drinking. So they've been dehydrated for 4 hours, then they overhydrate, and then they dehydrate again, and they overhydrate, and it's better than not drinking at all, but that's still not as good as staying consistently hydrated because your body's still having to work to catch up, and then once it catches up, then it has to work to dump all this extra fluid, which is still a lot of work. You want to drink about 8 ounces every 1 to 2 hours. So you should be knocking that 1 liter bottle down, every hour or so. Okay, a little bit. A lot of times I tell people those small, little 8-ounce water bottles that you hold in the palm of your hand. A lot of times it's easier to carry those around all day. You put in your pocket, or your backpack for guys, girls, it's easy to hold in your purse. And you just drink one of those like every hour, every 2 hours. You drink it, you have one and then just fill it back up at a water fountain, and drink it again every 2 hours. From the standpoint of game times, a lot of the Gatorades and Powerades are sugary drinks. They're sugar, and a lot of times you get a sugar high and then a letdown or a drop right after that, and that can affect your mentation. Which is why a lot of like Gatorade came out with Gatorade Zero, which is like the low calorie, which tends to be basically watered down, Gatorade. But I do think that's healthier. That's better than the straight up Gatorade from a standpoint of hydration. I'll say this is more personal experience and not professional experience. I definitely like the taste and the electrolyte aspect, of a Gatorade or Powerade, either watered down or the zero form or low calorie form during game times. But essentially from a dehydration aspect, a lot, and you'll note, I think a lot of professional athletes just drink water, and really, I don't think there's much of a difference, but there again, that's just a personal opinion, not a scientific or professional one, that I've looked at the data or the research. I personally, drink Gatorade when I'm working out, but I would say that it's more important to just be well hydrated before you get to a game. Try to drink like 2 liters, an hour before game time. You kind of behind the 8 ball. But I would definitely make sure that game day, days before the game, that you just, and every day that you're just drinking enough water.
I think that question was for Doc right there.
That's some good.
I just got educated real quick.
Well, you got me a little inspired on the water too.
Yeah.
Reminder for all of us.
Yeah.
2.5 to 3 liters a day.
So question, Doc. So during the game, how much did they drink? Because you said like 8 ounces, and you said hydrate before the game. So is it like little secrets?
That's like a regular. So if you have increased losses of fluid, then that replacement requirement becomes higher. So right. So if you're out there, you're sweating, it's hot. A lot of times you might it might be dry, so you might not be real sweaty or wet, but you're working hard. It should be more of a gradual hydration throughout the game. Or, during timeouts, during huddles, things of that nature. You want to make sure that you just, even if it's just like, you're taking a sip, like 2 sips, to where you're not like getting to a point where you're thirsty, where you're like, yo, I need some water. Come to the sideline, and then you're like, go, 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 go. You want to make sure that you're kind of pushing hydration throughout a workout, throughout a training session. Don't wait until you get thirsty, because once you're thirsty, it's too late. Like, you're already dehydrated. Yeah. You're behind the game. You're behind the 8 ball. Your performance is already diminished. So as you teach and talk to your players, you want to tell them every opportunity that you get, take a sip, take a couple sips, take a hit, take a little bit here and there throughout the game, throughout the workout. As coaches during training, when we're outside, more frequent water breaks, but they can be brief. You know what I'm saying? Like, do a couple suicides. All right, get some water. Back in line. You know what I'm saying? Like that. Everybody have like their water bottle right there, so that you're continually staying hydrated. That's a more effective way to prevent things like heat stroke, dehydration injury, stuff like that. Don't wait till you're thirsty. Stay ahead of the game, and that could be with anything. And Gatorade, when we're talking about supplements, there's a financial aspect of it, but it's if it's going to make you drink more, to stay more hydrated, and want to kind of it's I think it's fine. I think it's good. There's an element of sugar, and electrolytes that it kind of, and this is more personal opinion, not professional, but it makes sense, that you are losing electrolytes also, and you will want to replace those. So
Yes.
why not? To speak specifically to the question of one or the other, but I want to say that oftentimes it's not answering the question, but asking the right question, and that's the answer I want to provide. Is just staying hydrated. I think is more important than what you hydrate with.
Understood. Thank you.
So our last question comes from Eli T. Dear Titans, what can I do on my own time outside of practices to specifically work on my speed?
Ladders are always good. Ladders are good ways to help work on your speed. There's a lot of different things you can do to work on your speed. It just depends on what type of speed you're trying to gain. Is it speed going north and south, or is it speed going east and west? That's something that needs to be clear, because if you're playing basketball, going east and west, you can seem quick going east and west like you're going north and south, depending on what you're doing and how you play. It just depends on what you want to do. There's plenty of training programs out here for speed. I think a lot of them are just to gain money, but I really like the ladder. I really think the footwork drills are great for speed.
I think YouTube has a lot of good resources also, and workout programs. There's, this is more personal experience, just, dealing with my son, who, these kids, they're able to find a lot of things on YouTube, and kind of implement them and just start doing them. That doesn't really cost any money. In my limited experience, I definitely defer to Coach Sam and Coach C. But from a standpoint of personal experience, if you're at home, like you said, there's a lot of programs out there. You can just see what you like, what you enjoy, what you have fun doing.
I think sometimes the kids, I don't know the age of this particular kid or anything like that, but I know with mine, he just ran funny in the beginning stages. Like, I was like, man, you just, sometimes they just, how their bodies are, they don't move to their full like they should. And it's weird. You look at them like they should, but sometimes they just so awkward. And you're like, man, I can't. Maybe we just need to work on getting you faster. But really, they just ain't grown in, and they just awkward. I do know that I've seen that. I know with him, I've seen a transformation. Yeah, I definitely see a transformation in that. And that didn't come from too many workouts. It came more from just natural
time.
Which is true. You guys definitely giving some good advice with YouTube and what Coach C said. But I do know, like you said just now, time, that's another thing. Sometimes we don't think about it. But it's, some of these things these kids are gonna do ain't got nothing to do with us. It's just what time we're gonna do. But,
and that's something that I have to receive on a regular basis. My son is 9. Coach Sam, Christian is oftentimes mistaken to be 1 or 2 years older than he is. He's going into the fourth grade, and he's been playing with with 6th graders, and 7th graders, and I have to always check myself to say, he's 9. He's not 12. He's not 11. And just like, why are you running like that? Why are you moving like that? Stop. But a lot of time I definitely think that to address the question specifically, for a younger age individual, a lot of times it's just time. As Coach Sam said, and for any individual, there's a lot of different things, there's a lot of different movements, and there's a lot of different programs, and there's no one right answer. But I would just say that the desire to want to get faster and to work on it is probably the biggest thing that you have going for you.
Definitely. Well, fellas, I definitely appreciate everyone's time tonight or this evening. I can't thank you guys enough for giving that, because it's valuable. It truly is. Ain't much more valuable than our time or what we physically and mentally can give and spread. So I gotta just say that. Again, Todd, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being a part. You bring a lot to it. Not many coaches can bring everything, but the Titans seem to be able to give a little bit where they can give. And
What we do.
We try to take advantage of. Hopefully one day, the world given, we'll be able to do this more in person at one point. That's always the goal, to have the things. But other than that, man, we definitely appreciate everyone.
And we miss you guys. We appreciate you guys, and I can't say enough about the relationship that we have.
And you know what, man? We missing Christian. When you start talking about him, I was sitting there thinking about Kwan and how they would have both just been sitting there like, yeah, we both very similar, right? Because they both seem so like you both said, we forget about their ages, and it's huge because we do forget it, and then they don't forget it. But they want to play up and they want to be just like the older boys. So it's definitely fun to watch that. We definitely miss seeing the kids grow up to do that, but we definitely keep in contact and try to watch you guys from afar.
No doubt.
All right. Guys.
Be safe.
Yep, you too. Absolutely.